Good morning. How are you all? Doing well? It was super cool to see the topic statement that came out for this specific Creative Morning, and I was thrilled when we had the opportunity to kind of share what Diane's vision was with everybody here, because it so perfectly fits within the idea of restarting. I'd like to read the topic statement one more time because I think it's so critical to this. I know it's redundant, but I really think it's great. I love this. Restarting is essential. It's a way to digest experiences. If you find yourself feeling like you're on a treadmill with an invisible hand increasing the velocity, remind yourself only you have the power to get off and recalibrate. I love it. I want to go straight in the deep end of the pool real quick. Super provocative, completely uncomfortable, and really, really raw. If you knew a child who was in danger, would you help? I think everybody initially would. If you knew that someone who had a dad at 5th grade decided that he wanted the tax credit from the state, but more he wanted an errand boy to kind of help him through his addictive behavior, and he took his child out of school because he needed an errand boy, would you step in? What if a young boy was raped at 8, and then separately, at the hand of another man, raped at 9? I think all of us probably would say, if I knew that, I would step in, right? Even most disturbing, what if a young girl who was sold into prostitution as a 1-year-old and throughout her whole childhood by her mom? Would you step in? Did you know this is in America? Did you know this is in Lexington? I want to unpack that a little bit later, but let's kind of move on for a second, get less deep. Diane Perez, my wife, is the whole reason we're doing DV8. Quite opposite of me, she was enthusiastic about trying to help people restart their lives through job employment. I was not. Diane came to me and says, look, we've been blessed by the restaurant industry. I think we should use the restaurant industry, which it's been our livelihood for 25, 30 years. I think we should use that to help people. She says, you're an addict, we should do it for you. At 25, I went through rehab. I've been clean for 28 years. Secondly, she says, it's interesting to note that the industry that we make our living from seems to either attract addicts or addicts are attracted to it. It's illustrated by the fact that before we opened up DV8, she recognized that we lost 12 people in 10 years in 3 restaurants. And it's not lost because we fired them. It's lost because they're dead because of addiction. And we're not specific, we're not unique, we're typical. Wow. I said no. Sorry. There's no way that we can employ a workforce that everybody knows won't show up on time, won't be motivated, won't produce good work. And then pretty soon they're going to quit quickly, and I'm going to have to retrain, and we're going to lose all that money. There's no way that this would work. Cute idea, Diane, completely patronizing, but it won't work. To her credit, she said, you know, a social enterprise isn't only about making money, something that was prophetic later. She let it die. About 3 months later, she came back to me and says, Lexington really needs a place that gives people a second chance through employment. How come you don't go downtown where she helps out with a mission that's in downtown Lexington? Why don't you go down and see what happens to people that are a little more marginalized than the people you hang out with? You hang out with people that are like you. Why don't you go see people in your own town that might need a little bit more help? Why do you avoid it? Why won't you drive through 7th Street with me? You refuse to. Are you scared? Or are you scared of what you might see? Well, she took action. The next statement surprised me. She says, listen, I've arranged for an undercover policeman in an unmarked car to take you at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and see what happens downtown, because I think you need to see it. So dutifully, because I'm afraid of her sometimes, I got in that car and drove 7 blocks from where we're standing right now. 4 blocks over, and here's what I saw. A woman gets out of a car with her hand clenched. That car doesn't look like her, nor does the person inside of it. They don't match. I realized that woman is practicing prostitution. She walks directly across the street to a man that, frankly, I would be scared to walk down the street next to. Without looking at him and her not looking at him, she opens up her hand, and I realize what was in her hand was what she earned in the car ride. When she opened up her hand, she didn't have $100. She didn't have $50. She had $5. Instantly, I realized that that's not fun. That's not a party. That's not sexy. There's nothing good about that. What human indignity did she have to endure for $5? What would cause someone to face that? It was stark, it was scary, and it was real. The woman grabbed a baggie from this man and started walking, and I asked the policeman, what? What is going on? He says, she just got drugs, and she's going to go into that tree line, and she's going to do them. And I said, then what happens? He says, the cycle keeps on repeating all day. I go, you got to do something. This is ridiculous. He says, we have. We've arrested folks. We've put them through programs. Law enforcement can't fix this. Government can't fix this. What can fix this is people. Your wife is trying to convince you that relationships are the thing that's going to matter. He called me out. She had worked with him before. I'm like, holy moly, yeah. So a couple days later, I was trying to understand it all and try to think about it in my head and what it all meant. Diane came to me again and said, so are you ready to start this for all the reasons that I've outlined to you? And I said, absolutely, unequivocally, no. There's no way. It's too big, it's too broken, and I can't do it. There's no way. My wife went for the jugular. She says, what about your faith? In your faith, the 2 most important things are loving God and loving people. When I see you expressing your Christian beliefs, you kind of hang out with the same people. You kind of do for other people that are kind of in the station that you're in life. What that is that you're working with someone for sometimes a favor. It doesn't look like service to me, it looks like a favor to me. Why don't you help people that are truly marginalized, that need your help? That's what service is. Instantly, I was reminded of something that happened to me in 10th grade. I had a teacher call me out in the middle of class and says, "Hey, Perez, 50 years before the Wright brothers flew, we had all the same technology the day that they flew. Why didn't man fly sooner?" I was befuddled. I didn't know. I said, "I don't know." Embarrassingly, I couldn't figure it all out. He said quickly, "It's because we thought we couldn't. We thought that we didn't have the ability, so no one thought about it. We didn't try to fly because we didn't think we could fly." And I realized at that moment, those two stories in my life, that maybe I could. And the only thing standing in front of me and this idea that Diane had was me. So I had to go out on a personal journey. I had to find out things. I had to figure out in my head, because I have to have my head lead my body, and that's a problem. But I had to intellectually understand the whole process. First, I thought, why do I think this way? And I wonder if society thinks this way too. I realized that stigma of addiction is gigantic. And I had to ask myself, everybody talks about recidivism, and why? Everybody says, why do people go back to drugs or addiction? Why do people go back to prison? And I really struggled with that. But I kind of came to a very quick and very rational, very logical solution, is that currently when someone has a past, do you know what we do? We prevent them from having a job by denying employment. Does that make any sense to you? Okay, so if you throw someone in jail for having a habit and they've done something wrong and they get out of jail and they need help, we do everything we can to get them back there. And then we scratch our heads thinking, how is this? Why is this? And this doesn't seem very hard to understand to me. Society prevents people from having a job even if someone's in recovery was the next step for me. Someone that's trying to help themselves. We have no vehicle to say, hey, look, someone is clean right now. They're trying to work on themselves. They're doing all the right things. Shouldn't we have the ability to say yes to people that are really helping themselves? It's an interesting idea. The next thing that I really wanted to try to educate myself is, what is addiction to me? I need to do my homework. I need to figure that out. Is it a choice? Because frankly, I have spoken about it like it's a choice. I have heard people speak about it like it's a choice. It kind of goes like this. So, that person not doing well at his job, I guess when they're ready to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, if they're ready to be an adult, to be a productive member of society, they'll figure it out. Once they're ready, it's a choice. They'll stop drinking and drugging. I'm not sure it's all a choice. What I really kind of come to find out that it's three major components, the way I think about it. We're genetically predispositioned to have this thing that some people have and other people don't. We get it from our family. It's heredity. Part of it is. The second piece is a traumatic childhood experience. Something has to trigger that thing that's in us. Third, which can be helped, fully admit, that's the drugs or the alcohol. That really does accelerate the whole thing. It's the thing that makes it blow up. But what I started to realize, that childhood trauma is deep, and it's strange, and it's mysterious, and it's uncomfortable, and we don't like to talk about it. We frequently don't know, even when our best friends have childhood trauma. It frequently comes out subtly in statements like, hey, I didn't have a very good childhood. It's more of a riddle than a statement or a truth about ourselves. It's too subtle to really get. It usually comes out as a symptom, though, and it's generally an addiction. We see addiction and we know what it looks like. We don't have to kind of cover that subject. We know what it is. But the thing that struck me is that those adults that were in addiction now once were children. But now I turn my back on those same people just because they're older. I don't think that any of those folks chose their heredity nor their childhood trauma. Unfortunately, they did choose to use drugs or alcohol, and I'm not denying that. But they didn't choose the first two components of that explosion, for sure. Finally, through that exploration and through that education that I tried to give myself, I agreed with my wife's advice that we would open up DV8. And what would I have missed if we wouldn't have? Man. Opening up DV8 really made me love the restaurant business again. The newness, the bakery, the food, working with people that are wonderful. We have 23 people that are in active addiction, and we work really closely together. We hold each other accountable. We trust each other. And we make a social impact together. Our job is to try to thrill the guest. Through that, we get a program that works. We change the way people that come in and then we interact with think about addiction and, most importantly, recovery. And it's been so gratifying. My biggest learnings at DV8 are several, but I'll try to narrow it down to 4. First and foremost, I thank my wife. Her diligence, her persistence, her love. She's just like the constant North Star in doing the right thing. Not only for me, my family, but for God. And I'm super appreciative of her. I should have never doubted. Second, jobs are critical, but the relationships that we gain in the jobs that we have are huge. Do you recognize how many of your closest friends you met at work? Can you imagine? I bet half of you would probably be happy to leave your job right now if you could take all your friends with you at work. I mean, be honest. We cultivate so many wonderful relationships that are so integral to who we are and what we become at work. Those relationships, if you deny someone opportunity, they lose those relationships. And I think it's super important we recognize that. The people at work literally have given me the strength and the connection to share my story with them and their story with me. Number 3, people who need help in addiction look just like everybody that's sitting here. I mentioned 3 stories of people that actually work at DV8. At the very beginning, I told you 3 stories of 3 children. Those 3 children are now adults, and they work at DV8. They gave me permission to tell their story today. They know I'm talking about them. But I want you to know this. I want you to know that there are 2 of them that literally work hard, do everything right, show up on time, care about what they serve, who they serve, and how they serve it. I can tell you that 2 of them are joyous every day. You wouldn't imagine how much they give me every day, encourage me, make me feel great. They're so joyous, even they went through what they did. I can't even believe it. It blows me away. What they overcome every day is so much greater than what I overcome every day. It's unbelievable. The 3rd person was a product of divorce. It was a boy who had parents that he adores to this day. Those parents, unfortunately, didn't give him the supervision, the guidance, and the protection that they should have. And at 8 years old, that boy was raped by a man under one of his parents' care. At 9, was raped by a completely different man in different circumstances by another man. That boy is me. Why don't we recognize that adults must have something terribly wrong to be addicted? Why don't we make that connection? Through the relationships that we've built with my wife, my family, and now my job, I'm able to tell that story. I couldn't before. It's the first time I've done it publicly. Facing these events changed me for the better, and they're critical to my healthy recovery, and I needed that. 4, prior to DV8, I really was seeking happiness and comfort and security. The funny thing is that I found that when my hands are dirty, when my schedule's messed up, when I'm helping someone else, I'm surprised all the time at how crazy my life can be sometimes, and it's hard. But because we're really working for each other, and it's not just for me, it's not just for my gain, it's really strong. Vocationally, I used to have kind of big jobs with fancy companies and make a lot of money. I really wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied because I was only working for me, the next promotion, the next raise, or the next cool project. It was hollow. Now, I'd like to kind of bring this all together. I'd like to go back to the topic statement and break it down just a bit. Restarting is essential as the first 3 words of our topic statement. Restarting takes relationships, jobs, and another person's time and attention. I know that. The second portion, it's a way to digest experiences, reflect, and cultivate self-awareness. Oh, how I had little. I had none. I needed my wife to help me open up my eyes and look in the mirror. She knew that I was the perfect person for the DV8 job. I didn't. Why did I look elsewhere? Third section, remind ourselves that life's to be enjoyed. Man, I was looking at the wrong spot. Sometimes the hard path is the path to success in your own heart, your own soul, and your own mind. It doesn't have to be easy. It just has to be good. The last piece. If you find yourself feeling like you're on the treadmill with an invisible hand increasing the velocity, remind yourself that only you have the power to get off and recalibrate. How we try to run not only our business but our life now has 3 bottom lines, not just financial. We all think about that. Every day we have to go into those restaurants and figure out how can we build a better mousetrap? How can we give better service, food, and atmosphere? How? And that's part of a social enterprise, absolutely. Second, the second bottom line is social impact. How are we affecting our job force? How can we make their experience better? How can we all earn more money together? The crazy thing is that we work together to try to satisfy the customer, and that's our unifying connection. And it's been super successful. Third, our third bottom line, and we look at it just like we do financial. We look at it every day, every week, and every month. We look at it because we believe there really is an invisible hand that guides us. We do it for a higher reason, a larger purpose, for God. And we think that no matter what your religion, your beliefs, if you apply that for a larger meaning than yourself, it's going to be completely successful. The triple bottom line for us is the way that we hope we live the rest of our lives. Thank you.